Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take complex industry sources and distill them into actionable intelligence.
And today we are tackling a big one.
A really big one. We're focusing on one of the most significant wealth shifts happening right now, the massive consolidation sweeping through the financial advisory world.
This is a high-stakes transformation, and the real takeaway from the sources is that advisory M&A has just fundamentally changed.
How so?
Well, consolidation isn't just a growth strategy for big firms anymore. For most sole practitioners and smaller RIAs, M&A has become the default succession plan.
That's absolutely right. It's almost mandatory now. With an aging advisor demographic and, let's face it, constantly rising regulatory and technological burdens, firms have to either institutionalize or sell.
There's no middle ground anymore.
So our mission in this deep dive is to take the playbook in our sources and just demystify the actionable roadmap.
Exactly. Whether you're a seller looking to monetize decades of work or, a buyer seeking that immediate inorganic growth, we're going to show you how to navigate the pitfalls.
From valuation all the way to the fine print in the legal structure.
Our sources really do provide those detailed steps, everything from preparing your practice for a premium to what buyers are really looking for in due diligence and the critical legal mechanisms, the risk shields, I call them, that determine the final value.
Okay, so let's start with that foundation.
Let's do it.
So let's begin by clarifying the driving force here. Why is this happening now? What are the core benefits that make this transition almost unavoidable for sellers?
For sellers, it really boils down to 3 points that solve what are basically existential problems.
Okay.
First is succession. It's the only guaranteed path to ensure your clients and your team are looked after when you finally decide to retire.
So it's about legacy.
It is. Second is monetization, which offers maximum liquidity. You get paid for decades of relationship building, often far, far more than an internal junior partner could ever afford.
And third?
And third is capacity. This is a big one. Many senior principals, they just want to step away from the crushing administrative and compliance burden of running a business.
They want to get back to what they love.
Precisely. It frees them up to focus solely on client relationships, dropping that CEO hat for good.
That freedom is incredibly appealing. So if sellers are solving a retirement problem, what makes M&A such an irresistible engine for the buyer?
For the buyer, it's all about speed and, frankly, talent arbitrage.
Inorganic growth.
Powerful inorganic growth. You gain immediate scale and cash flow that would take, years, maybe even decades to build organically.
And you get the people.
You instantly acquire high-quality talent pools and gain market entry speed into new regions or new client niches.
Now, the sources outline 3 common transition models. Just for clarity, which one are we focusing on today?
Right, so we need to distinguish between an internal succession, selling to a junior partner.
Person already in the firm.
Exactly. Then there's an external sale to an unrelated third party, like a big consolidator or another RIA. And finally, a merger, where 2 comparable firms join forces.
And our focus is?
Our playbook is all about the external sale. That's where you see the highest valuations, the most complex transactions, and honestly, the most risk.
Okay, let's pivot to that playbook. If you're a seller, where do you even begin?
You begin by understanding that the market is it's ruthless. It rewards operational excellence, and it really penalizes inefficiency.
And this is where preparation turns directly into profit. The sources are so clear on this. A practice that prepares proactively can command a 20 to 30% higher valuation.
It's a huge number, and it cuts the due diligence timeline by months.
That premium is the reward for shifting your mindset, isn't it? From running a profitable lifestyle business
to building a ready-to-sell institutional asset, it's a completely different frame of mind.
So what's the first step in that shift?
The first, absolutely non-negotiable step is defining your primary objective. What is your why?
Is it pure monetization and you're heading straight to the beach?
Or is it increased capacity and scale while you stay involved? Or is it about protecting the succession and legacy? That why dictates your entire strategy.
Especially how long you commit to sticking around after the deal closes.
It changes everything.
Okay, so once that objective is set, sellers have to execute on what the sources call the 3 Ps of sale readiness.
These are the operational specifics that buyers just scrutinize.
So let me ask you, how hard is it for a, say, 60-year-old sole practitioner who's run the business their way for 25 years to suddenly hit these metrics?
It's the biggest challenge, honestly. Because it requires abandoning old habits. The first P is predictability of revenue.
Meaning?
Buyers want to know that revenue will stick around. So recurring fees, they have to ideally exceed 85%. AUM fees are favored way over transactional commissions.
But you might have to restructure client agreements before you even go to market.
You often do. And the second P,
Portability of clients.
this is a deal breaker. Client contracts have to be legally assignable, and critically, all client data must be in a single, clean CRM database.
Ah, so no scattered spreadsheets and sticky notes.
If the data is a mess, it just signals massive operational weakness and, to a buyer, a huge client retention risk.
And the final P addresses the buyer's biggest fear, key person risk.
That's professionalization of operations. You have to document all your standard operating procedures, SOPs.
How you prep for meetings, how you do billing, how reports get generated.
All of it. The goal is to prove the business can run successfully even if the founder is suddenly, hit by a bus. No documentation means the firm's value is locked inside the principal's head.
Okay, let's talk price. Valuation seems to have two parts, the science and the art.
It does. The science uses methods like discounted cash flow or DCF analysis.
Which is forward-looking.
Right, projecting future cash flow. And the market-based approach, which is just comparing your firm to recent similar sales.
And then there's the shorthand, the key comparative multiples.
This is what everyone talks about. For stable firms, the multiple of recurring revenue, or ARR, is common, usually 2.5x to 4.0x.
And for others, it's a multiple of AUM, assets under management.
Typically 1.0% to 2.5% of AUM.
But for the bigger, more scaled firms, we always hear about the adjusted EBITDA multiple, often 8x to 12x. Why the shift to EBITDA for bigger deals?
It's all about operational leverage. See, ARR favors stability, but adjusted EBITDA rewards efficiency and scale.
So if you're running a lean, high-margin practice,
that multiple of adjusted profitability becomes far more valuable to a scaling buyer than just a multiple of top-line revenue.
and that word adjusted is crucial. It means the buyer is cleaning the books with normalization adjustments. Give us a vivid example of an add back.
Oh, this is my favorite part. Think about the owner who runs a $1,500 monthly car lease through the business.
Happens all the time.
Or pays for their entire family's health insurance, or charges a 5-figure annual golf club membership to the firm. These are all personal expenses.
And the buyer says,
The buyer says, I don't care about your golf club. That's not an expense I will inherit, so we are adding that money back into the profit number.
it's about finding the true profitability.
Exactly, before the owner's personal perks.
So what are the intangible drivers? What gets a seller to the absolute high end of that 4x multiple range?
It's all about eliminating future risk for the buyer. Recurring revenue needs to be above 90%.
What else?
Client demographics are key. An average client age under 60 suggests decades of future fees. Low client concentration. No single client should be more than 5% of your AUM.
And the big one.
The big one, the existence of capable, non-owner, next-generation advisors who are contractually locked in to stay. That just erases key person risk and signals sustainability.
Okay, so if a seller has done everything right and is commanding that high-end multiple, the buyer has to be extremely strategic to justify that price.
They do, and this brings us to the crucial build versus buy analysis.
The pivot point.
The buyer has to analytically prove that M&A is financially superior. They look at their organic cost to acquire a client, their CAC.
And they compare that to the deal price.
Right. When the implied acquisition cost per client through the M&A deal is equal to or, lower than their organic CAC, M&A becomes the mathematically superior path.
Because of the massive advantage in speed and immediate cash flow.
You get it all at once.
But that doesn't mean they just go out and buy anything. They have to define their buy box.
Oh, discipline is absolutely essential here. You have to avoid targets that are so small that the transaction and integration costs just outweigh the revenue gain.
And you need a good fit.
A good fit is everything. Mismatched service models are a killer. If you're a high net worth fee-only RIA and you buy a practice built on insurance commissions, you're going to have massive client attrition. The philosophies just clash.
Technology too, I imagine.
A huge one. Integration friction from incompatible tech stacks is a major, major value detractor.
So once the right target is in the buy box, how are these deals financed? The prices are pretty substantial.
Modern deals rely on a pretty sophisticated capital stack. Bank financing is common, particularly SBA 7A loans for deals under $5 million.
But the most critical component, and often the most insightful one, is seller financing.
Yes.
We always hear about seller financing, but tell us why it's so much more than just a financing tool.
Because it's the ultimate retention mechanism. It aligns incentives perfectly.
How does it work?
The seller typically provides a note for about 20% of the purchase price, payable over, say, 5 years. This means the seller has a deeply vested interest in the success of the transition and client retention.
Because if clients leave.
If the clients leave in that first year, the buyer can argue the underlying asset value declined, which could reduce or even eliminate the payout on that seller note. They have skin in the game.
That makes perfect sense. So before committing, the buyer must be stress testing the model around that exact variable client flight.
Absolutely. It's the retention variable. They have to calculate the ROI if 10% of clients leave, or 20%. If the deal only pencils out in a perfect 100% retention scenario.
The risk is just too high.
Way too high. A disciplined buyer builds that unavoidable attrition into their financial model from day one.
The moment the letter of intent, the LOI, is signed, the real rigor of due diligence begins.
This is the verification phase, and sellers need to understand this.
A disorganized, incomplete data room isn't just an inconvenience, is it?
No, the sources say it's a massive red flag. It causes buyer confidence to just crater. It can kill the deal entirely.
So what are they looking for?
Well, financial due diligence is pretty straightforward, reconciling custodian AUM reports with your internal billing software. But the client DD is vital.
What are they measuring there?
Concentration risk. Is there any single family or client that's greater than 5% of AUM? Or any one employer group, like a 401k plan, that's over 15%?
Because high concentration is a huge risk multiplier.
A huge one.
Okay, let's move to the legal protections that allocate all this risk. It starts with the letter of intent. Now, the price is often non-binding, but what parts are legally binding?
The binding provisions protect the process itself. Primarily exclusivity, usually 60 to 90 days.
So the seller can't keep shopping the firm around.
Exactly. It lets the buyer invest in due diligence without that risk, and of course, confidentiality.
The ultimate protection, though, is in the purchase agreement, the PA. It includes what are called representations and warranties, or R&Ws.
Which are just the seller's statements of fact about the business. Our financials are accurate. We have no undisclosed compliance violations.
And if those R&Ws turn out to be false after the deal closes, the buyer needs recourse.
That's where indemnification and escrow come in. A portion of the closing cash is held in escrow for 12 to 18 months.
So it's a safety net.
It's the safety net. If the seller warranted perfect compliance, but 6 months later, the buyer gets hit with a massive undisclosed regulatory fine from something the seller did.
They draw from that escrow account to cover the loss.
Exactly.
There's also the specific risk of clients just walking out the door right after the close. That's handled by an attrition clause.
Right. And this is a non-contingent protection for the buyer. It defines a baseline retention, maybe 90% of AUM at the 12-month mark.
And crucially, this clause excludes general market ups and downs, right?
It has to. It's only about clients actively leaving. If retention drops below that floor, the purchase price gets reduced, usually through a clawback from that escrow account.
Now, we have to talk about the notorious earnout trap.
Ugh, yes. Poorly structured earnouts are the #1 cause of litigation in this sector.
They really are.
The solution is just simplicity and transparency. Use simple metrics the seller can actually influence, like net revenue retained from their old book of business.
Then
Avoid complex, firm-wide profitability measures that are completely outside the seller's control.
And what protection should the seller demand in the PA to make sure they can actually achieve that earnout?
The seller needs to insist on covenants. These are clauses that obligate the buyer to maintain the status quo of client-facing services for at least 6 to 12 months.
So the buyer can't just come in, change everything, and then claim the client's left for other reasons.
It prevents them from sabotaging the seller's ability to hit their earnout targets.
Finally, let's look at the power of the non-solicitation agreement, the NSA, which is backed by a really severe damage clause.
This is the ultimate deterrent. It really is.
How does it work?
In standard contract law, the buyer would have to prove the seller actively solicited the client away. The damage clause flips the script. It says if the seller simply accepts or services a client from the sold practice during the non-solicitation period,
They have to pay a penalty.
a huge one, often 3 to 4 times the client's trailing 12-month revenue, That high multiplier removes the buyer's burden of proof and makes it an immediate, painful financial disincentive for the seller to even think about it.
All the legal structures in the world won't matter if the clients just walk away.
Not at all. Client retention is the single ultimate measure of success, which makes communication absolutely critical.
And this brings up the famous client communication dilemma.
Yeah.
When do you tell them?
It's a tough one. The risk-first principle suggests you inform clients at the moment of closing, post-close.
To prevent mass attrition if the deal collapses at the last minute.
Right, but there's a regulatory hurdle.
The negative consent rules.
Exactly. Regulatory requirements often necessitate a brief, mandatory pre-close notice period, especially when contract assignment requires that negative consent.
So it's a razor's edge.
A total razor's edge. You have to satisfy the regulators while minimizing the time clients have to react before the sale is a done deal.
And the messaging itself has to be pristine. It has to focus entirely on the client's benefit, doesn't it?
100%. Succession security, enhanced resources, team depth, never, ever about the seller's need to retire or cash out.
If the client thinks they're being sold like an asset.
Retention plummets. The communication has to frame the move as an upgrade in continuity and service.
And once the deal is done, the cardinal rule of integration kicks in for the first 90 days.
Which is, do not cause client friction.
So no immediate fee changes for the first year.
None. Preserve the seller's familiar branding and staff processes for a while. Any significant tech migration has to happen completely behind the scenes.
A gradual, low-impact rollout.
The client should barely notice.
So how do buyers measure success? What are the key post-acquisition KPIs?
The AUM retained percentage at 6, 12, and 24 months is the big one. It's the most important metric. And second to that is the retention rate of the non-owner staff.
Because if the team leaves, the clients will eventually follow.
They always do. It signals cultural fit or a lack thereof.
Finally, let's trace the evolution of the principal advisor's role during that transition period.
It's a very carefully phased drawdown. Phase 1, the first year, is the ambassador of trust.
They're co-leading client meetings, validating the buyer, making introductions.
Then phase 2, months 12 to 36, they become the mentor and validator. They're coaching the successor advisor, but slowly stepping back from operations.
And it's important to note, if the transition is short, say 6 to 12 months, the seller usually isn't paid a separate salary, are they?
No, they're not. Their transition compensation is baked into the total purchase price. It reinforces that retention incentive right to the very end.
So what does this all mean for you, the advisor listening to this? It's clear that M&A is a complex business transformation. It's not just an opportunity to liquidate an asset.
Not at all. Success really hinges on 3 pillars. Rigorous preparation to maximize that valuation.
Meticulous communication that's focused squarely on client benefits.
And disciplined, low-friction integration.
What's fascinating to me here is how much the final purchase price and the ultimate success of the deal depends on structures that manage the human element.
That's the whole game. The most dangerous point in this entire process is not the valuation negotiation or even signing the LOI. It's the first 90 days after closing.
That final value, realized by both the seller and the buyer, is determined entirely by what our sources call the stickiness protocol.
The successor advisor has to be able to document and transfer all that non-public client knowledge, the family history, the sensitivities, the little personal details that money can't actually buy.
So a final provocative thought for you to consider.
The cost of failing to integrate that soft knowledge, the depth of the relationship history, can easily exceed the entire legal and consulting cost of the transaction itself. The relationship risk is, at the end of the day, the greatest financial risk in this entire industry.
That's a truly powerful insight to end on. Thank you for diving deep with us today on The Deep Dive.